Hi everyone, it's Jan here from the Hospitality Partnership. I hope everybody is doing well. And since it's the day after the bank holiday, I hope you all had a really nice long weekend despite the weather. As if there's not enough challenges, then we get rain and gusty winds and all of that. But hey, we are hospitality and we will survive, not only survive, but also thrive and flourish. So, we continue to navigate the Corona Coaster roadmap, and it's really wonderful to feel that optimism that is out there and a real sense of excitement. It's definitely different than it was even from a month ago. However, that sounds quite negative, but it's not. However, as we get back to some normality, along with that optimism and excitement, comes nervousness, apprehension, and varying levels of worry and anxiety. And whatever level of role within the organisation, the effects of the past year have had an effect on all of us, without a doubt. We've spoken to so many people, and it's certainly affected all of us in lots of different ways. And it's kind of that we really do need to consider how our peers, how our colleagues, even how our bosses are feeling. Be extra aware and just be kind. But that awareness is so important right now. Anyway, as it's Mental Health Awareness Week next week, and it should be mental health awareness all the time, not just over a week, but it is Mental Health Awareness Week next week. So we thought that this would be the perfect time to speak to yet another one of our amazing associate partners, a mental health first aid instructor for MHFA England. And that is Gavin Percy of Balancing Edges and Winning Edges. So I'm going to now pass you over to Gavin to introduce himself and tell us a little bit more about himself. Over to you, Gavin.
Thanks, Jan. So my name is Gavin Percy. I have a company called Winning Edges and an operating company called Balancing Edges. My background is all hospitality. So I was a general manager of hotels, went in to be a sales director of hotels, and then made redundant in 2013 from Principal Haley when they moved the call center to America. And I decided to start my own business then. So I've been doing that ever since, mainly doing sales training and sales consultancy. But in 2018, I decided to move into mental health because of some issues close to me in my circle of friends, got interested in mental health and learned how to be a mental health first aid trainer with MHFA England, as Jan said. And since then, I've upskilled to train all the adult courses through the MHFA. So that's they do a 2-day mental health first aid training course, a half-day awareness course, a 1-day champion course, and I've recently upskilled to do a refresher course as well, where people who've done the first aid course need to do a refresher every 2 or 3 years. So that's really my immediate background. I've got interested in the mental health, and actually now probably about 80% of my business is mental health compared to the sales consultancy side of things, as I've got more interested in that area. And also I think there's a gap in the market there because people are getting more and more aware of mental health in the workplace in particular. So it's a very hot topic at the moment. And I think that's one good thing that's come out of the pandemic, Jan, actually, is people have taken more care and attention about mental health, and it's become higher up the agenda because of that. And so hopefully that will help reduce the stigma and discrimination around mental health and make people more willing and able to talk about their mental health in the workplace. So that's something I hope is going to come out of the pandemic, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. And I think people are kind of alluded to it in the introduction, that people that you'd think would never be affected by mental health, they've always looked this very strong, very capable person. Everybody has been affected. Every single person that I have spoken to has been affected in some way. Some not so much, some massively. And I know that it affected me. Probably still does, really. I don't think it just goes away, does it? You know,
No.
It's going to take time to get over what we've just been through over the past, 14 months now. But as you say, it is really good that people are aware now, and people, I think, are a little bit kinder and more aware. So there is so much that we could talk about today, but let's focus mainly on a great paper that you've written and it's aptly named the re-entry shock. I think the name describes it all, really. It's a brilliant piece. I've loved reading it, and I learnt so much from it as well. And it's focusing on how business should adapt to their employees returning to work. So just tell us a little bit more about the re-entry shock.
Yeah, I think people are aware that there's going to be disruption in the workplace. I think people are all aware of that, but perhaps not seeing it from all the angles. So what I've tried to do in the paper is say, don't just think about the people who are coming back to work, for example, which I think people do recognise that people who've been on furlough may struggle back in the workplace again, for example. But that's not the only stream of your staff or your teams that are going to struggle, I think. People who've been working through have been working through doing lots of different jobs, lots of different responsibilities than they had before, perhaps enjoying that, perhaps not enjoying that, perhaps working 125% instead of 100% because they've had to, because nobody else has been around. And all of a sudden, their life is going to be turned upside down by these people coming back into the workplace. So I think we need to recognise that in itself is a potential problem. But just the whole disruption of people coming back into the workplace, people who are working from home suddenly having to work back in the office again, that's going to be a disruption. As we take more staff back on in the industry, we'll be taking new staff on. Well, there's always anxiety when people start a new job, and that's going to be no different with post-COVID, but actually probably magnified because of all the other things that are going on in the workplace. So I think we need to look at all these areas and try and recognize what the potential problems are and be proactive, really, trying to come up with things that will stop or minimize, not stop, but minimize the issues as much as possible in the workplace by putting things in action as a policy that will hopefully inform people, will make sure they're aware of what changes have been made in the workplace, even as simple as letting people know their jobs are safe. You know, one of the biggest anxieties people have got is the company okay? Am I going to be okay? Have I got a job? Because I've been on furlough. The government's been paying most of my salary for the last year. Is my job safe? Even the company might think, well, I don't need to communicate that because that's obvious. Well, it's obvious to the company, but it's not necessarily obvious to the individuals. So just simply making things, communicating, really, it's mainly about communication and recognizing that the teams are going to not have the same level of information as people at the head office may have, and making sure that is communicated out to them in a proactive manner than a reactive manner.
I think as well that when you look after your team in this way, that it shows that you're a good employer to work for, and so that will be a benefit moving forward. But also by looking after your team, for me, I know that it can improve your bottom line as well. Now that kind of doesn't make sense. So how does looking after your team improve your bottom line?
Well, I think the easiest thing to refer to is Deloitte did a report before COVID. So I think the figures will probably have got even more dramatic since then. But before COVID, they did a detailed report about the costs in the workplace. And what they found was, whilst I think the figure is £48 million, I haven't got the figure in front of me now, but £48 billion of cost to UK industry of what it takes to the lack of productivity, the poor morale in the workplace, absenteeism, presenteeism, all these things added up cost that level of money to the UK industry. But what they also found was that for every £1 that a business spends proactively on mental health will bring a £6 return to the bottom line because of those items being improved: productivity, absenteeism, presenteeism, staff turnover, which is a very expensive thing, as we all know, lowering that absenteeism and that staff turnover is something that's really important. So it should be seen as an investment. Anything that people spend on mental health as a company should be seen as an investment rather than a cost. And that's very easy for me to say, but as I say, Deloitte backed that up with their figures, and I don't think there's many bigger companies in the world to report on that than Deloitte. So it's not back of a fag packet reporting this. It's real stuff.
Yeah, and it was kind of those Deloitte stats that I was hinting at, really. So on the paper that Gavin's written, there's a great piece on there about the ROI that you will get from your employees by just simply being aware and looking after them. And of course, it's not all about return. Yes, you know, we have to hit that bottom line and exceed it, but it's also to be a good employer too. So in the paper, it tells you about that return on investment. So don't look at it as a cost. Don't put a line in there that this is a cost. You will get more than your investment back.
Yep.
So the kind of people that will be affected by this then, and there's all sorts now, and again, this is in the paper, that the paper is just incredible. It's those, and I know Gavin touched on this a little while ago, but returning to work after furlough, what might people be thinking on that? There could be envy for those that weren't on furlough and vice versa, I guess. And they still do the job. I know I've had that. It's like, I don't remember how to do it anymore. And I've spoken to many people that's like, well, I used to be really good at getting all those sales. And it's like, will my contacts still remember me? And fearful of what's changed. Also returning to the office after home working. It's been quite nice, you know, kind of sitting at your laptop, and you might have a blouse on, but you've probably got your slippers on as well, or your jogging bottoms on. So just that is going to be a challenge. And those that have worked through, and in fact, and I don't want to take this away from you, Gavin, but I went to see a general manager, and it was at the beginning, really, of this whole lockdown. So this was like kind of June last year. And I went to see the general manager, and he looked exhausted, absolutely exhausted. But also he'd told me that he'd had his team in just for an update. And the weather this time last year was really, really sunny and beautiful. And he said, they were all sitting there, very relaxed, all tanned. And it just made me realise that, you know, this general manager really needs some support. So that's kind of that. Those people that have worked through really need this support. And as you say, the newly employed as well. Anybody else that you could think of? I mean, that's massive in itself.
I mean, that's more or less everybody, isn't it, in the workplace, really coming to one of those categories, I think. So we've got to be mindful of that. And obviously different characters have different abilities to cope with the stress and anxiety of those things. Some people will be more affected than others. But that's another reason why the companies need to be mindful of it and be fleet of foot so they can deal with the issues as they crop up, and they can address them, as I say, proactively, so that it's not a reactive thing. It should be a proactive thing. And if they do that, that's when they're going to start getting the return on investment. As you say, you know, they'll be seen as a good employer, which you know, will make the staff morale higher, which will make their productivity higher, which it's an upward cycle. If they get that right, then it's all positive. And then any new staff that come in will be swept up by that positivity, rather than the potential negative spiral that could happen if things are not being looked after very well, and people just get dragged into that, including new employees.
You also have a great, easy to read mind. I don't know if that's the word for it actually, but a mind map. This is my copy of it, but it's about thriving at work, and that's what we want to do. We want to thrive and flourish and enjoy it. Just tell us a little bit more about the different elements of thriving at work.
Well, it's a report that was done for the government, actually, by two guys, Stevenson and Farmer, who are well known in the mental health world. And they did this report about how companies should address the issues and be proactive about the issues. And I think probably rather than going through every single item on there, because it's quite detailed, is referring people on the paper. There's a link to the report, and I think it's a 30-page report, which might sound a bit scary, but actually by government report standards, it's quite a small report, and it's very easy to read, very digestible, and it goes through each step that the company should take. And as I say, it's nothing to do with me. It's a government report that I think is something that every company can learn from and improve the way they're dealing with the staff, to give them that edge, if you like, to give them that proactivity that they need in the workplace, to make people understand the importance of mental health in the workplace, and make the culture in the workplace one that people can be open about their mental health as well, because historically, particularly the hotel industry, we're not very good at being open about our mental health, because we'd be seen as being shirkers or not hard workers, or not able to take the stress and strains of work, and maybe as a result of that not be valued in the workplace. And I think people would probably take a day off sick with a sore back, in inverted commas, but actually it was stress or anxiety that was causing that, and so the figures would be underreported accordingly, because we wouldn't feel able to be open about our mental health. So being open about that is not a bad thing, and being open about that and being aware of that is really what the Stevenson Farmer report is aligned to try and create that culture within the workplace that's a more positive culture around mental health.
It is very positive, it really is. And, you know, there really is so much to cover. It's a massive, massive, massive subject, and it needs experts like you to kind of make it easy and make us develop programs and making sure that it's inclusive for all employees. But as we come to the end of this, what kind of, and I know there's a lot to it, and I know that you would cover this in all of your training and developing programs for businesses, but just what would you say are the key protocols and support that should be in place for a business?
Well, I think the first thing is to make sure that you have a policy in place for mental health and wellbeing in the workplace. That's the first thing. And there's a template in my paper. There's a link to a template that you can use to create that. So that's a good starting point. Stevenson and Farmer, it's one of their recommendations as well. So that's really the starting point. But if people do that and nothing else, that's really just a tick box exercise. That's just saying, oh yes, we've got a health and well-being, a mental health and well-being strategy tick, and then move on. But actually that's not good enough. It's got to become cultural within the business. And the sort of things that can be done for example, I don't know, return to work interviews, one-to-ones, appraisals, you know, all those kind of standard things that you do as a line manager with your teams. All of those documents should have extra questions in there around mental health. So as simple as, how are you today? Not, you're right, yeah, you. It's no, how are you today? Yeah, and asking that question twice, not just once, because when we ask it once, we just go, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Are you all right? And making sure that that's actually asked, that question is asked in all those communications with your teams, formal or informal. And it becomes then, that will start the process of making it cultural within the business and make it something that is talked about in the business and is given airtime in the business and is given credence in the business. And as a result of that, you'll get more ownership from the teams as a result of that. And there's lots of good examples of companies doing good things, but there's lots of examples of companies just doing the same old, same old. And I think we are progressing, we are improving, but there's a long, long way to go. So there's that. A way of getting the culture within the business is using the standard forms to create that by adding those extra questions in there around mental health, but also communication with teams, to make sure that the communication is done with teams, that they understand what the business is thinking and how the business is moving forward. And the fourth plank to it really is training. And I would say that because I'm a trainer around mental health, so I would say that, wouldn't I? But it's been proven that the mental health training does improve things in the workplace. It gives people understanding of how that works. And my recommendation, the three main training sessions we do is the mental health first aid one, which I believe 5 to 10% of the employees should be put through. And then there's a second course called the Champion course, which is like a supporter to those mental health first aiders. And my recommendation is about 5 to 10% of the employees should be put on that course. That leaves 80 to 90% of the teams. And I believe all the teams should then go through the third course, which is called mental health awareness. Now, I know I would say that, wouldn't I? But I'm not saying that because I make money out of that, as I do. But I'm saying that because I think it genuinely is a way of changing the culture within the business. And if everybody understands mental health to that level and that ability, they're more likely to make the business thrive, as we talk thriving at work, make the business thrive. And that's how it's going to work. So yeah, in an ideal world, that means everybody in the business has some form of mental health training. The half-day course is a very simple half-day, 4-hour session on Zoom at the moment, or Teams, or whatever your chosen platform is, or half a day face-to-face when we're allowed to do that. The champion course is 1 day or 2 half days on Zoom, or a 1 day face-to-face. And the mental health first aid training is a 2 day course face-to-face. And we're now delivering that online through a platform called Enably, which is a fantastic platform, which is 4 sessions, usually over 2 weeks. So roughly 2 days apart each session, to give people time to do their homeworking, because it's partly self-taught and partly instructor taught, but it's a fantastic online course. They've really done a good job at upgrading that. But I think it's really important that that training is put in the workplace to improve the culture within the workplace as well. And I suppose the last thing, maybe I should just add to that. I said that was the last thing, but this is the last thing now. The last thing maybe to think about is an employee assistance program. If companies don't have an EAP in place, they should look at doing that, because what an EAP does, they have different levels of it depending on the EAP that you invest into, but they will have some form of talking therapy as part of their program. So staff will get instant access to a talking therapy. It may be an online version of CBT, but it could be a Zoom call with a cognitive behavioral therapist. But if they have that available on their EAP, they're going to get instant help. Whereas, with all due respect to the NHS, at the moment there's a waiting list, and that waiting list is just getting longer because of COVID. So it was 6 to 12 weeks to wait for a talking therapy. It's probably now something like, well, I've heard examples of 6 months. So obviously a 6-month wait for somebody who's struggling a bit is too long. So what an EAP does is gives that breathing space. It gives them that immediate support and help to get that over the line, to get that person the help that they need immediately, whilst they're waiting for the NHS to catch up. So it's not to replace the NHS, it's as well as the NHS. So that's a wee extra one that I've sort of recently added in because of the problems with COVID in the NHS and how that's caused a bit of a backlog in the system.
Yeah, invaluable. All of that is just so invaluable. And as you say, just take that first step, on training and getting the first few trained, and I can see it in time that actually it won't be a choice. Every company will have to have some kind of a mental awareness training and mental awareness, just being aware. And as you say, that's kind of, how are you? I think it's never been more important to actually don't just say it as like a hello and I don't care how you're feeling. It's now, no, how are you really?
Yeah.
I know I usually say it twice now because people are struggling. So yeah, it's great that you have these training courses. So all the links to the training courses are on the paper as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Okay, so when we post this, we'll also put a link to you and how to get in touch with you. And just, I know that Gavin will happily, I'm offering you services here for free, Gavin. I know that he will be more than happy just to talk to you about your needs, and there's no cost for that. And as I've said on other ones as well, talking costs nothing. So you've got nothing to lose, but an awful lot to gain, as does your business and importantly, your teams as well. So do have that conversation, and whether it's just a staged approach, whether it's online, then Gavin will certainly have the solution for you. So that's it then. So mental health awareness, very, very important. Don't look at it as a cost. It is definitely a return on investment, but also, and very importantly, it shows what an amazing employer you are and what a great company you are to work for. So on that note, we will close this chat. Thank you so much, Gavin. Really appreciate your time. The paper, and as I say, I certainly learned a lot from it as well. And chat soon. Thanks.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Jan. Bye now. Bye.